the thing that I want to talk about tonight, I'm just going to check if there's any confirmation that I'm alive. So if anybody's here and wants to join and can confirm that I am actually on the internet, I'd really appreciate it. If you guys can type something into the messenger, then I can just confirm that I'm actually here. Am I here? Are we here? That's the question, huh? Are we present? Are we embodied? I see Yatsik and I see Saira, and I'm not seeing anything confirming that I'm actually live. So let me see here. I'm not sure if I'm recording, so I'm just checking my settings and seeing if anyone is responding that the video is live. If not, I might just have to reload. I'm going to try to reload. Hello, hello. I just reloaded. I was having some connectivity issues, but it says that I'm at 4 minutes on this video. So if you guys are here, just write a little comment in the box so I know that we're actually live because we're having a little connection issue. I am living here in Peru in the Sacred Valley, and while the internet is much better than when I was in the jungle, I still don't always have a perfect connection. So if anybody at all, I do see a few people are here. If anybody can confirm in the live chat that you can see me and hear me, I'd really appreciate it just to know if this is actually streaming. It does say live now, so I am going to continue on. So I usually open up with, "Hey friend, Megan here." And I just wanted to do a quick check-in. Is anyone else here in their body, embodied where they are? Tonight I had a very fascinating conversation with my son. I just posted a new article about them being in a summer camp, winter for all of you people in North America and the Northern Hemisphere, but a summer camp where it's cross-cultural, it's outside, and my boys have kind of landed in their tribe. A lot of really cool, connected kids and very conscientious people who run it. Thank you, Yatik. I appreciate it. Like, am I talking out into the ether? I appreciate it, Yatik. I see you, and I so appreciate you. Yatsik is a dear friend of mine who lived in my guest home many years ago. All right, so back to the conversation of me talking about oddities and a conversation that I had with my son who just landed in Valley Camp, an outdoor camp. My children and I see things that not everybody sees, and that is an odd thing to say because we all have the same eyes, right? But not all of us are outside. Not all of us are under the sun. Not all of us see the shadows move or the ripples across the river. Some people are in their phones, some people are in their heads. People are all over the place. But when we're really present and we're paying attention, we're focused, sometimes new things are revealed to us. So my son had a conversation about something very odd that he saw in the sky, a very, very bright light. And this is something that there were multiple witnesses for, and I had also seen it. It was very, very special. And it's something that not many people would believe. He was absolutely blown away by it and moved by it and wanted to share it with everyone. And last night, he was telling me his plans to share this information with all of his new friends. And he said, check in with your heart on who can really see it and who can hear it. So he shared it with people, this incredible anomaly that he had seen in the sky, in the jungle. And many people laughed at him. Many people made fun of him and told him, oh, it must have been this and it must have been that. But he knew in his heart what he saw, and he couldn't quite explain it. And I don't think many of us could quite explain it. But most people laughed at him. But there were a few kids who pulled him to the side later and said, hey, I've seen similar things. Now, he never would have found those other special bright little lights that live from their heart and believe in these things and see them with their own eyes because they're outside and they're looking and they're curious. And truthfully, he was heartbroken. He was heartbroken that other kids were making fun of him. A lot of the teachers and guides didn't believe him, but some of them did. And it ended up opening up this incredible conversation about not everybody is going to see what we see and believe what we believe. And that's okay. And that's why it's so important to be able to come back to the heart and know what's true. I teach my boys this really quick meditation where I say, let's take 3 deep breaths into the heart. And you guys can all do this if you'd like. My pages keep breathing, so I always invite people to breathe during these. Big inhale in. Just visualizing the heart opening, filling with light, and watching everything kind of melt. Inhaling in, and watching things soften on the exhale. So after we just, what I call, tune in to the heart, focus on the heart, focus on the inside of us, then we start asking questions and we listen to that little voice. And what's fascinating is it always tells the truth. Things that we don't necessarily want to hear, things that we haven't been willing to see, the heart will always tell the truth. So it's something that I do to help myself regulate, that I teach my kids how to regulate, and also to check in. What's this really about? Sometimes they'll have a meltdown about something seemingly small and superficial. But when we breathe into the heart a few times and I ask them again, what's going on with you? Then all of a sudden there's something much deeper, much more important, and usually the root of things that is revealed. So I tell my boys to breathe into the heart, to hear the truth. So when we do this, incredible conversations ensue. And I just shared a pretty vulnerable conversation I had with my son about seeing things differently, seeing things in the sky, seeing things most people wouldn't believe, and being laughed at. So this conversation opened up about how not everybody is going to see these things and why was his question. And it's a hard answer, but most people don't look. Most people don't believe it could be true. And most people aren't in the setting to even have it be revealed to them, whether it's sitting in stillness, being in joy, breathing into their heart, looking up at the sky. They're down in their phones, they're in their head, they're elsewhere. And so many programs bombard us on what our reality is. And I find many times that those layers aren't always what they seem. So that was the conversation we had, to use discernment about who we share with, and that we can't make people believe things. They can believe what they want to believe and what they will believe. And we can only check in with what we've seen, experienced, know. And that sometimes these things are revealing on who is on the same wavelength with us and who's not. So it was a really beautiful conversation and a hard conversation because, of course, as a mother, seeing him hurt, seeing him sad is hard. And I've had very similar experiences of sharing things that felt miraculous and enormous. And it almost seems to not exist to certain people, or it's so triggering to people, or they think I'm outright crazy, and that's okay. I've heard it enough in my life. But sometimes I step back and I wonder, how did the world get where it is? And is the world well? Is the world sane? Is the world aligned and truthful? And when I look at those kind of benchmarks, I don't know if the world is healthy and sane. And so if I'm the crazy one, I'm okay with that. So I pulled a card tonight because I heard very clearly, go do a live, which is always a little uncomfortable for me. I am so glad that you guys are here to join in this conversation about oddities and things that go unseen by many. I pulled a card of a new deck from the Healing Waters. So these are just for me a representation, a metaphor, a way to just self reflect on things that are coming up. And would you believe it? But this card came up, and because my internet's not so great in Peru, I'll read it. You're not for everyone. Embrace your weirdness. Face your true north. So, for anybody who's just tuning in, we just talked about my son seeing things in the sky that most people wouldn't believe and most people would laugh at, and they did. But there were witnesses, and there were others. And when he shared what he saw, there were other kids that came to him and said, "Hey, I've seen it too. I've seen that exact same thing in the exact way that you described it, but nobody believed me." So when we embrace our weirdness, our oddities, sometimes we can find others that see the world in the same way, that see it without a filter of disbelief that says, "That's not possible. You're crazy." And we find the other ones that might see things too. So isn't that a funny thing that that's one card that I found? You're not for everyone. Embrace your weirdness and face your true north. So finding your true north, the quirky, the weird, the odd, it can be a little bit uncomfortable because it's usually that stuff in our life that we've just kind of done because it feels right to us, good to us, interesting to us. But it's not necessarily gotten by many. Recently, I shared a post here on Substack that I like science a lot. uh, like a lot. Really deeply considered going into engineering, chemistry, pre med. And I won science fairs and did experiments for fun. But what was so weird is it led me down this insane path of looking at Rube Goldberg videos, the kind that have like a cause effect, mousetrap, domino effect, that I've always found them fascinating. I don't know why, but they're just so cool, really fun. And so I have liked them since I was a child. I have liked them since I was in art school. And there's this Eames one that goes on. It seems like there's no cuts. The Eames were artists back in the 1960s and 70s, and they did an artistic Rube Goldberg. So a music video came out, and I followed my interest. I followed my synchronicity. I followed my bliss and my weirdness, and I went on an obsessive rabbit hole exploration of everything I could possibly do to learn about this video. It was Okay Go, This Too Shall Pass. It's amazing. And I watched it over and over and over again, just asking myself a million questions. How did they do this? How long did it take? How many tries? Who gets paid to do this? Like, it just went on and on and on. And so it took me down this place that I ended up finding out that there was a TED Talks type event for artists that was like secret in a downtown loft and invite only. And somehow I had gotten a hold of it and I had gotten in and I invited all my friends to go. And would you believe it? But the band and the scientists were speaking that night. I had no idea. And for some reason, I ended up there. And I ended up dating one of the speakers and getting invited to house parties. And all of a sudden, I became friends with them and invited to their parties. And it revealed this whole other side of Los Angeles that I had never seen. And it was such a huge step in my journey to believe in my weirdness because was also a cheerleader and a dancer. So I kind of hid my nerdy science interests for a long time because in one group it's not particularly acceptable, and the other group you know, there was a group called Knowledge Master Open, which was all about trivia and answering hard problems. And it was a bunch of nerds studying, and I loved it. And I hid it for a long time until I didn't. And it has continued on my love for science and reading papers, but also seeing a lot of the dark side of the hidden data, who it's paid for, why it's done, which parts are shown, which aren't. It took me on a very deep dive working for scientific groups, doing design, which I actually went into instead of science. But I mentioned that I think that the science and the art brain are very similar. It's being able to see details and beauty and systems and connecting dots and symbols and patterns and meaning. And I find that both are just different ways to look at the world with different forms of language, whether it's math or symbol. Aman, hello. Annie, wonderful to have you here. David, I love you guys so much. Dave Stabler, I am just seeing some of my absolute favorite people here on Substack. I'm so grateful for every one of you. So tonight, after that long, winding, twisting, cause effect story of a Rube Goldberg mousetrap style machine that took me to hanging out with the guys. And sure, I was in Los Angeles. I was in an arena where it was possible. But still, what are the chances? I found that since that moment, following my quirky interests and bliss has taken me down many paths, whether it's conservation, off grid living, homesteading, healing. Those are all parts of myself and my interests that I've ended up seeing miracle after miracle after miracle. And I've only started sharing some of the weirder, stranger stories, like caves liquefying in front of my eyes, or people who had been to the hospital 4 times for hearing loss and had completely lost their hearing and were told there was no chance it would return, had it pop open after an hour, and many, many other things. So glad to catch you guys all live here. So I want to just turn it back to you for some self-reflection. What are those little memories and moments that you have that you look back at that you were just being you? You were caught in the moment. You were caught in a smell, a sight, a song, a thought experiment that made you feel like the most you. A lot of people come to me and ask me what their life purpose is. It's a big question. And everybody wants to hear this booming voice from God. You are meant to do this, and this is who you are. But I find it's this little whispering voice that we've told to sit down and shut up and sit in the corner because it's embarrassing and weird and was judged and made fun of. And so that voice gets very, very quiet because we haven't heard it in a long time because the world shouts all the things we should be. And so when I think about purpose and I think about who we truly are, it's that funny, funky, nerdy, odd stuff. It's the stuff you lose yourself in. And I'll tell people, think about when you were 7 or 8. What did you lose yourself in? What did you just dissolve into? I find that everybody's got these secret little passions. And why are they secret? That's my question. Why did they become secret? So, no, you're not for everyone. I have lost a lot of subscribers when I started sharing the stuff like birds started following me in droves and singing with me and dancing with me. Real stories. They happened. I got embarrassed. I hid, but they happened. I would sing to the birds and they would sing back like a Disney princess, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I still get embarrassed when somebody catches it because it's always been my secret world. It's been something I just enjoy. I like to whistle or sing a little tune and kind of match the bird's song. And I'll start to almost hear them chatter back and they'll start to climb in closer and then they'll start to land on me. And they'll make nests by my office or my desk or wherever I'm sitting. And it's happened so consistently now that I'm like, okay, I'm the crazy bird lady. Great. Even now, I have a little self judgment and self ooh, embarrassment, I guess you could say, to be like, but think about that. It's easy to call somebody the crazy bird lady, their crazy cat lady, because it's something that they like and they've followed it. But yeah, since I started sharing that, tens of thousands of dragonflies started spinning in circles around me. There's a lot of people that won't believe it. There's a lot of people that would call it crazy. I would certainly love to have videos of it, but I'm usually in the moment and I don't like to have my phone. And then if I do catch somebody filming me, which sometimes that happens, I usually run away because to be captured in a moment of just bliss and joy and presence that wasn't for anybody else and then all of a sudden is being witnessed and viewed, it feels vulnerable. When the person's hearing came back, I also ran out of the room because there was actually about 20 people in the room, and when the woman's hearing came back, she freaked out, popped up, and just absolutely started screaming, "This is a miracle, this is a miracle, this is work from God," and it was. But I just didn't wanna take credit for it because I know this work is not about the person, me. It's about the person who's healing themselves and knowing that they can, and doing some things to support their mind, body, and soul so it can happen. That's my ideas about that. But yes, it's not for everyone in this world where everyone wants to study and the data. Trying to explain this stuff is sometimes a bit counter to the narrative. So I started this conversation about my son seeing some magical things that he wanted to share with people and people laughing at him and coming back hurt. And it opening up beautiful conversation about authenticity and listening to our hearts and trusting that we will find the right people who see us and get us. And he was very upset about it and it turned into acting out. But as soon as we got to the root of the issue that he was just being him and so excited to share the joy of what he had seen, yeah, it opened up a lot of doors for us to connect. So we embrace our weirdness. We follow our true north, even if it makes us cringe a little bit because of our life experience of being mocked, dismissed, ignored, gaslit, or just blatantly made fun of for the things that made us most us. So I've got lots of fun, weird stories that will be coming, but I did want to ask you guys, Aline, and Visha and Donald and the pet economist and Yanis, hello. If you guys have any questions, because I like to open up these lives for you to co create, to ask, because one of the other fun, I hate to use the word gifts, but abilities, I guess, is the ability for me to channel information. One of my other kind of secret superpowers is I can feel people's bodies. I can hear the thoughts in their head. I can see memories from their past. I can hear voices of parents that screamed at them and things that happened. So I do one-on-one sessions because these things can get very vulnerable, very intense. Um, it can really mess with what we thought was possible if somebody feels like they're living in our skin or seeing through our eyes. So I've learned to be very tender about how I share this work because everyone says they want to be seen, and parts of us do. But parts of us are also scared to be seen. The parts that feel fear, shame, hiding, addictions that we don't want to exist, things that we don't want to face, hard things that have happened. So when someone can step into that, it can be very vulnerable. And I've seen many, many different responses to it, from absolute glee, bliss, manic laughter together to people absolutely breaking down into tears and shaking enormously. And part of my work is to explain why, because I do think there's a very logical, physiological reason and why the body responds the way it does energetically. But good night, Annie. Thank you for being here. But there are many things that happen in a one on one session. But what happened when I healed my my pains, old traumas is that the lighter I got, the more light came in. The more I let go of the heavy and the dense, physiologically, emotionally, energetically, the more clear and could say I became. And so during that process, I find that it becomes very natural to hear that voice that we talked about, that one that guides us, that inner child, that higher self, that heart voice that's connected to the divine. And that voice that's always trying to guide us home and tell us the truth. So the more I would hear that, the more I would see in myself, but also in society and also within people's stories. So I started channeling information and helping people feel very seen, I think. Things that felt very personal that sometimes we're like, is this crazy? Is this crazy? And a lot of the world will be like, yeah, that's crazy. And then one person goes, I see it too. I'm with you. I get you. I see you. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone, right? So I feel like that's been the role that I've been asked to step into, which still feels odd for me because it's doesn't have a title. It doesn't have a certificate. It doesn't have a bunch of experts patting me on the back saying, yes, good job. Way to complete that course. Um, but that is the work that I do and that I share. And that's where a lot of the stories come from and the information comes from is just hearing that and allowing it to flow through me. So, thank you guys all for joining. A lot of different faces and names. Really grateful to have you here. So, I am opening up the chat, which I have right here, and I'm just scanning. If anybody has questions, so here are some of the questions you could ask. I have a pain in my left leg and I haven't been able to shake it. And it happened when I was little. Is there something I can do about it? Or what does it mean? Or things like that I can help with, certainly. If you have bigger questions about society, go for it. I'll answer what I hear. And if you have questions about anything, just put them in the box. So thank you guys for being here tonight in this new year in 2026. I don't celebrate the new year in January. I find that this is the quiet time kind of in between the end of one thing and the beginning of another. I tend to look at the moon cycles and the calendars. I wrote an interesting, kind of odd story about how calendars were messed with a long time ago. that basically there used to be 13, or there still are 13 moon cycles, and that each one divided into 28 days, the same as a woman's period or moon cycle. Uh, yeah, they add up to 364 and then one day of rest or rebirth. And so if you look at an ancient calendar that they've tried to reboot a couple times, that every Monday would be a moon's day, and it would be a full moon, half moon, or new moon. And each day of the week would have an energy that would be associated with it. So Thursday being Thor's day and things like that, Saturday being Saturn's day, that there were certain astrological and energetic alignments to time itself. And that said, the Aries new cycle starts in February, and that's the springtime and when chickens are born and when new baby calves are born. And weirdly enough, even in South America, baby calves and chickens are born around the same time. But in the ancient calendar, they did a switch in the Roman times with Augustus and Julius, and they wanted their own month and they wanted it longer than the other months, etc. So they added July and August. And it switched everything that November was no longer November, the ninth month. In Spanish, it's noviembre or nueve. Diciembre is 10, but it's actually now the 12th month. So it just messed with time a little bit and the natural rhythms that are actually very mathematical and ancient and global, that I find that long story short, long story super long, celebrate and feel this new beginning more in the area of February to April. And so I don't even see it as a moment, but I see it as an opening and a cycle. And another funny story about the calendar, Fool's Day, April Fools, when they switched from the ancient calendar to the modern calendar, it was the fools that got made fun of because they would celebrate spring, new arrival, new beginnings, fire. And everybody made fun of them and said, no, the calendar was changed, get with the times. So, yes, it's a resting time right now. And it's a time to go within and review old patterns, what we've learned. So I've been doing a lot of that lately, is just going back through old stories and seeing how they link together, and seeing how far I've come, but also areas that I have to grow. So it kind of sets me up with a very different set of resolutions, which I also don't do. I usually do a set of gratitude, a set of lessons, like a self audit to be very real with myself, and then some intentions, pick a word, pick a feeling for the year. So that tends to be my New Year's thing. But today we're talking about You're Not for Everyone, because these are some ancient and esoteric concepts that I think have a great amount of wisdom and a place for this world to help us get a sense of how we're related to the natural world, how we're related to the cycles of growth, how we're related to the soil and things that are alive, because we are them. We are the air we breathe and the soil that turns into the food and the water that becomes our blood. That I find that when we tune into nature and nature's rhythms, life gets a bit easier and makes more sense. And the synchronicities and the flow that we also desire start to open up. And I also think it's the reason why people like Thoreau and Jesus went into the wilderness to go be by themselves in nature so they could hear the silence and the voice of God. So, those are just some random ramblings, but not so random at all. I have a feeling that they might be hitting a mark, because while I'm not for everyone, I do think that this place tends to bring about thinkers outside the box and people willing to look at the truth and people wanting to open up and connect in vulnerability in something that's real. So that's why I'm grateful for each one of you that's here, because I find it hopeful reading your stories and just being your messy, raw, honest selves. I just saw a really funny meme about, I don't know if it was funny, um, spiritual people that wear a lot of hippie clothes and do all the right diets and drink all the substances. That's like this kind of face of new age spirituality. And I find I live in a very, very tr well-known spiritual community. It's the Sacred Valley. It's got a lot of spiritual tourism, but I find it's the people who are considerate, real, conscientious, self-aware, and self-responsible who are the most connected, spiritual, real. So here on Substack, where people are so earnest, honest, and willing to connect with each other, I'm just incredibly moved by it, incredibly grateful for it. So thank you guys. Frank and Sarah, Karen and Joe. If you want to read somebody who's really real, read Joe Nichols. He's in here. I really appreciate his honesty. He doesn't BS himself and put on a performative, pretty Instagram worthy sticker. He just is honest, and it's so refreshing. And I find so many voices like that here where people can just be themselves, open, and hopefully learn some lessons and be self reflective through the process to find our unique, authentic voice. There's so many buzzwords in spirituality, but I want to get to the real, the lived, the non veneer performative. Look at me, I'm spiritual crap, but just the weird, the quirky, the not for everyone stuff. So, circling back to the main theme, I'm just going to look back through to see if there's any questions. Rebecca, hi. Glad you popped in. And Sarah, thank you guys. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, but I do want to open it up if people have some areas they're stuck in their life, questions that they've been asking themselves. I do think you're all here because of this funny little card that I pulled. You're not for everyone. Embrace your weirdness and face your true north. And being able to peel back the layers of the stuff that's not true, that we've pretended for a really long time, that we thought was true, that we maybe invested a lot in. And then we're like, this isn't working. It's all unraveling. I don't know if that's right for me. And then everybody in your life is like, she's going crazy. But actually, you were just going sane. Um, that's the stuff we're talking about today. And I'm kind of rambling about, but I'm just looking at this card, and actually I'm going to pull another one because we got all the weirdos and the black sheep in here, my favorites, and the people that are self-responsible and aware and compassionate. So I started this conversation talking about weird stuff my son sees in the sky. I see all sorts of crazy stuff. So if you want to ask about that, feel free. Crazy stuff in the sky. Some stuff that happened while I was in Machu Picchu. Some things with a mountain I used to meditate with. If that interests you, do feel free to pop a question in about the weird stuff I've seen. And I just dropped a card. Cool. So interestingly enough, I got star bathing. Get out there, look up at the sky, see that there's a sky around you. Because a lot of people are like, I don't see it, I don't believe it. But I'm like, have you ever looked? Do you actually spend time seeing what's up there? I had a friend that told me she never sees rainbows, and we live in an area where they're really common, and she's inside all the time. She's like, I've never seen one, but I'm always walking. I'm walking all the time with all my stuff on my shoulders, and I'm always outside. I would say 80-90% of my life is outside. I also lived without a phone for 7 years, while people definitely had phones. I lost it, and I was like, well, we'll see how this goes for a little bit. And then I found it opened up my intuition and it created all these synchronicities. And I started really trusting myself again. And I realized, yes, it's possible to live without a phone. Now, my backstory is I lived in LA in technology. I was making apps and like products and yeah, working with tech teams and knew too much. And I went without a phone for 7 years. Now I still had a laptop, so I would have this process that I would do some online things, but then I would shut it down. And people would write me messages and I would say, I check it 3 or 4 times a day. I'll get back to you. Because I just find this tether and this lack of presence and this portal to another place of the screen is all very intense. And we could probably think about that more. But we were talking about rainbows and stars and why people don't see them. And it's because they're not looking. They might see them on the scrolling feature, but to actually sit under the stars, watch them twinkle, see the different colors that shine out, see the patterns above you, see how they swirl and spiral and where the planets are. Um, that for me, I see it's light. It's light in the darkness. And I think that it can speak to us a lot more than we realize and is a lot more important than we realize. And when you look back in ancient times, holy crap, they were obsessed with the stars. Every culture mapped them out for navigation, getting someplace. They were a guidance system. And so there is this really interesting thing that's saying, go star bathe, get out there, be a hippie, go look up, see what's moving, see what's shaking. And then I got Breath of the Cosmos. Like, really, one of my prayers this year was, let my will be thy will. And everybody comes in with different ideas about God. I see God as oneness, universal consciousness, universe, higher self, breath, life, all it is, creation itself, pulsing, breathing, creating itself, knowing itself. But I see this greater force, like all these little specks and dots of life for all of us, the plants, the animals, us humans, and all of it. But there's still all of this dark matter and all of these stars and all of this stardust and all this space between, right? And I see that pulsing living force as something real. And that's a lot more than me. So I see this creator force, kind of heavenly father force in that. But I also see this maternal force, this material vessel, this earth physical place giving birth to all physical reality as the mother. And I see both of them connect with all of us. But I see it as love, ultimately love and creation. And so, yeah, realizing that I'm one with, part of, held by something much bigger, a pulsing force of creation, creator, all of it. And that my little ego self, human being Megan, who's like walking around trying to figure stuff out, that I just lay that aside and be guided more by this sense of knowing, this sense of love, this sense of greater purpose that's beyond my brain logic. But that's really been my intention, is to just let my will be thy will. And a lot of times it doesn't make logical sense. Human Megan kind of freaks out. But when I hear that guidance, something lands so deeply within me that there's a knowingness is really all I can say once you've sat with it long enough, and the fears that it brings up, of course. That those were the two additional cards. I did have someone say, I'd like to hear about the weird stuff I've seen. And we're already at 46 minutes. So thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. And thank you, Dave, for being here. And for people that need to leave, just bow out. I'm never like offended that you have to leave. If you want to pop back in for this conversation, cool. If you don't, cool. I was just glad to spend some time with you and in your energy, because I can feel all of you, which of course sounds weird, but The card says embrace your weirdness. So that's what I'm doing tonight as I'm more publicly sharing this stuff that I tend to not share. My eyes also go all over the place because I'm accessing different areas of my brain and consciousness as things just are coming through. I've learned to open my mouth and let it fly, which is always uncomfortable for the human parts of me. That's another weird thing to say. Cool. All right, so weird stuff I've seen. Lights, orbs, ships. Yeah, I don't know how much people believe it. I don't particularly care. You can tune out now if that's not your jam. Um, Weird stuff in the sky. Great. First memory that's popping back in is I lived at the base of a mountain here called Apu Saiwa. Apu is the name of like the mountain essence, the grandfather, the one that gives us perspective and then creates this valley. They're called Apus, and in Peruvian ancient culture, they were revered as like family. And so I lived at the base of this one single mountain in a valley here, and I found out that Saiwa means light beam. And there's two towers at the very top of this mountain. And I would just sit outside and stare at it for hours. Because, like I said, I'm outside a lot. And there was this one area of the mountain that I would just stare at, and I don't know why. It was just kind of a blank area. It's got this folding, undulating softness to it, is all I can say about the feeling of the mountain. But Saiwa means light beam. Well, one night I started just seeing these flashes of lightning, and there was absolutely not a cloud in the sky. And I found out from someone later that there's a thing called high prana areas, prana being life force, chi, the breath, pneuma. I'm using many different languages. Pneuma is Greek. Prana comes from Indian and Hindu culture. Chi, of course, from Eastern medicine and Asia. Um, but life force, right? So this mountain created these flashes of light, and that there were other areas in the world where there was so much electromagnetic discharge and it was so high altitude, and there's a lot of quartz content in this mountain, that it would just release energy, and energy can be seen as electromagnetic, and it's also shows itself in heat and light. So there would not be a single cloud in the sky, and there'd just be these massive flashes, boom, 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 and without a sound, absolutely soundless flashes of light. Um, so I started talking to some of the elders there around the area, neighbors, about like, have you ever seen the lightning? And some people, of course, looked at me like I'm crazy, and some people would, pull me aside and say, "Oh yeah, it's real. There's a lot of lightning activity and light activity and electrical activity discharging from this mountain. And there's only a few places like that on the planet. They're called high prana areas." So that was kind of step one of my experience at this mountain, is seeing these crazy flashes of light. And the other thing is, other people couldn't see them. I would be sitting under it, and maybe like half of us could see it and half of us couldn't. And I was like, what is going on? So to circle back to the conversation of, some people have eyes to see and some people don't, there are certain frequencies that if you're in love, in gratitude, in curiosity, in openness, you might be able to see things that other people don't, quite literally. So, and it is always nice to have witnesses, because otherwise you feel like you're nuts and alone. But that was step one of this mountain. So step two of this mountain escalated. Um, there was an evening, and dead sober, me sitting at the base of this mountain, I all of a sudden saw that one area of the mountain that I always stare at open. I don't know how else to explain it, but it like opened. And I just saw all of these lights come out. And I started hearing a very distinct voice. Now, channeling is interesting because there's like a personality, a feeling. It's not like a voice of God, like boom. For some people it is, but for me, it's like hearing my own inner voice, but it sounds almost like a different character of a voice. Again, we're going to circle back to you're not for everyone, and some people will think this crazy. So tune out if you want. But there's like a shade, a flavor to it. And I heard something very distinct. And I heard, "We are the guardians of this mountain, and we see you." And of course, I'm like, "We what? Ah." Um, and wasn't sure where I was because I was in semi meditation, but just kind of hanging out by the mountain. And I was like, I heard we have a message for you. And I said, "Okay, I'm listening, but can you confirm this is for me and this is real?" And the lights from this area that I had always stared at just started zooming through my backyard. And they did this wild light show. And I felt energy shake through me and I felt chills moving through my body. And I heard, "Is that enough for you?" And I was like, "Uh huh." Thank you. Because I've learned to just double, triple check myself through questioning so much of this process of learning channeling and ch- and trusting my clairsentience, clairvoyance, and all the clairs. And these lights were swirling above me and blinking at different rates. And I could feel information coming in even beyond what I was sort of hearing and sensing. And some people might call it a download. And this happens to me a lot. And even as I'm talking about this, it's giving me like the sweats and I'm feeling pressure on my head. So if you are feeling that, just pay attention to those subtle shifts in the body because it will start to speak to you as well. So then I just heard a very deep message. "We see you. We see the light within you. Thank you for the work that you are doing. We see your children. We'll be here to protect you." There were different messages that came through, but basically, this light beam mountain was called Saiwa from the ancients in Quechua. Light beams would actually shoot straight up from time to time as well. Light flashes without thunder on a completely clear day would happen from this mountain. And then what seemed like some sort of different dimensional portal opened up, and these orbs were swirling around and giving me a message. And I ended up sitting there for about maybe 2 hours, hearing and talking back and having a conversation with these, what they called the guardians of the mountains. So that's one of the really fun things I've seen because someone did ask about some of the things and visions that I've had that were also very real life, 3D, literal to me. And at the end of that, I was like in full sweat and I was exhausted because there's certain times that energies come through that are so high level and intense that it will do almost a physiological shift within you and make you feel different things and sweat and then you're kind of exhausted. So I was like, I think I'm done. I can't hold this connection anymore. And so I said, "Is that okay? Are we done?" And they were like, "Well, we're here for you." And then all of these lights that had been swirling swooped back over the mountain, and then a bunch of them swirled around and then went into the portal, and I saw it close. So that was something that I saw in the sky. So we were talking about people want to have these different experiences. I personally was never looking for them. I was never actively like, I need this power or I need this seeing this. It was just something that I had a very simple prayer. May I see clearly? May I see truthfully? May I live in love? And that was really all I desired. And now it's more, may my will be thy will, being this force of love and what I see as creator creating. um, but I lost my train of thought of that one. So I think that one's closing out, but it was seeing things that other people don't see and People not always looking, people not believing it could be there, people not even being outside or in nature or in a place that's quiet that they could hear or see anything because everything in this world is so loud and so bright and so intense. So to tune into the subtle is usually how I frame it, that noticing different shifts of how you're feeling, how you're sensing, sweats, shivers, shakes, twinges, that little tickle up your neck, that they're actually a language and they're trying to speak to you. So when you turn it down, I'll actually, when I first start this work with people, someone just wrote, "Everything is so loud, dude." Yeah, seriously. The lights are so bright. We are highly tuned electrical systems that evolved with nature and had darkness at night that now doesn't exist. So I literally turn my lights down. I literally turn my volume down. I turn my screen brightness down because I'm tuning my system that I don't have to hear the shout. And here in Peru, people actually spoke in a whisper. They speak at a volume that's almost so low that most Westerners can't even hear it because they're so used to people shouting. I actually had someone say, I can't hear people shouting and talking so fast because it doesn't even make sense to me, and I'm the same way, and I actually find that when I'm in lives with you guys or in sessions, I start talking higher and faster, and then I have to take a breath to kind of slow down back into my own rhythm. So I find that's very centering and helping to just notice the pace that I'm speaking in, and if I'm breathing and if I'm pausing. So I will to hear more of yourself, to hear more of your guidance, to hear more of your weirdness, whatever you want to call it. I find turning down the lights, turning down the volume. I turn our volume on like 3 clicks, and anything louder than that actually hurts my ears because I've become so sensitive to so many things in this world. So I'll tell people, like, turn on yellow lights, use one. Most people have bright white LED lights that absolutely hijack the brain to thinking it's daytime when we naturally had a cycle of wake up, active, sleep, rest. And that's been completely hacked and hijacked for people. So our natural intuition and our natural rhythm and our natural voice also gets hijacked with all of this unnatural stuff. So to kind of make it a little more practical and bring it back down to earth, from seeing lights and hearing voices, if that's something you're interested in and you're still here, that I really do believe that we were tuned to natural systems, and we have been for eons and generations, and that evolution is very slow and long. And we live in a modern society where the noise, the loudness, the artificial smells, the artificial everything is just disconnecting us and not helping us hear. And so people are lost because this is really about, it's interesting. You're not for everyone. Embrace your weirdness and follow your true north. So if you've got this body and it's a compass saying, this is how I stay healthy, this is how I stay well, which is what I believe, and everything's hacked and turned up and trying to grab your attention and shaking and yelling, that there's a reason every spiritual practice said sit in stillness, sit in silence, go to nature, and breathe, that these things done in practice tune us back in. And that's our true north, along with just love. So, yeah, taking a step back, bringing it down, grounding it, actually feeling the energy go from of life to, whoa, what does it feel like when we exhale? What does it feel like when we land? And so a lot of spiritual people will talk about grounding or integration, but I really see it as a physiological and even sound based. The second we let ourselves be here as we are, rather than that personified caricature that I think everybody's playing. Like, look at me. But really, here I am as I am. What does that feel like? So, yeah, I do think that we've just gotten so disconnected little by little, but it's really sort of skyrocketed through the last couple generations. That's how fast that part's gone. But finding our true north is really coming back to those simple practices, and most people overlook them, take them for granted, think this is too simple or too obvious, but then they don't just do them. And I tell people, like, a hammer does not build a house by laying there. So if I say breathe and I'm like, it will work, but people are like, yeah, yeah. Then, like, and again, and again, and again. You can just feel it land. So, grounding, integration, slowing down, silence. That's what it looks like and feels like to me. And that is why I do these lives and individual sessions, because there's a way that I can actually have a different frequency. And just by sitting with me, you'll actually feel yourself kind of unwind and unravel and feel your body a little more and want to stretch and maybe yawn and notice that you're tired and things like that, that we just sort of tune into because mimicry is real. Porosity between humans is real. So when you hang out with people who are like, "La, la, 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 la," you end up feeling kind of stressed and anxious. And when you hang out with people who are grounded, purposeful, intentional, slow, step by step, you kind of feel that solidity and you feel that comfort and you feel that foundation that's different than people who have practiced high anxiety, fast moving, spin out versus thoughtfully, quietly, introspectively being here. Take an exhale, everybody. Inhale and exhale. Doesn't that feel nice, though? Seriously, we forget, but it is quite simple. So we went to outer space and we talked about orbs and messages from mountain guardians, and that they're very alive and real to me, and things that my kids see in ways that I've wanted to protect them, and that these things might be considered odd, unacceptable, counterintuitive, or against the narrative. But this is how I find we find each other, by sharing the odd stuff that others might not get, see, and they literally don't. They can't actually see it. It's not on the same wavelength, frequency, dimension, whatever you want to call it, reality. So, I'm going to just look back through some questions about, loudness and being able to tune into this stuff, the interest of the weird stuff I've seen. There's going to be a lot more coming. I have a lot of stories of interesting visions. If you guys haven't read the articles, there's some very interesting, inexplicable things from a trip to Machu Picchu, where I woke up one day and heard go to Machu Picchu. And I did, of course, live quite close, but it was still quite a trek. Many, many buses, changes, winding mountains, tickets that I didn't have. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense for me to be there. But I went and all doors opened and many things happened, including being able to see someone who was completely gray and barely breathing in a stretcher be able to get up and walk and run during a very quick blessing that came through. So, and that was the movement. If you did read the article, I basically just did an infinity sign, and I do that a lot because it helps us remember the flow and the connection. I was actually told that for someone who has a fragmented and scattered consciousness, which is most of us, because every scroll, every 2 seconds, it's like channel surfing. It's crazy that actually this unification, just with the swirl, the swoop, can be very reunifying and reconnecting. So I will do that for you guys if you want to breathe and just kind of follow my finger and kind of feel the two hemispheres of your brain connecting, the two energies within you, masculine and feminine, productive and flowing, that this can be very helpful. And so we dance. And this is also how I dance with the birds because we were talking about sharing our weirdness. And I did get into how I communicate with birds and dance with birds as well. um, Lots of fun things. There are more things I saw in the sky. One of the articles that I will be writing beyond the miracles in Mexico and the ruins coming alive and seeing people raised from the dead and here again. I can, just so you know, as a human being, I can barely believe the things that I've experienced, from living with billionaires and working in tech companies to living on nothing in the jungle and seeing people walk again and hear again and speak again and use their limbs again. My brain still is trying to catch up with it. I know why it works, how it works, and can tune into the guidance to get there, but it still blows my mind every day. Why me? How me? I don't know. What I heard whenever I asked, because I didn't feel willing or worthy to experience this stuff. That's been a really long standing pattern for me, is like, who am I? I'm literally just a girl, like trying to figure stuff out and usually fucking it up pretty good. And I just heard over and over again, it's because you're willing. You're willing to ask. You're willing to listen. You're willing to try. You're willing to walk. And that is one thing that I have been, is willing to look beyond what most people see as normal and go, I don't think this is how it has to work. I don't think this is healthy. I don't think this makes sense. And the more I would allow myself to be willing to ask the question and be willing to hear the answer, it's just taken me to places I never, ever could have believed. So I talk about some of these stories very flippantly, and they are exciting and they are fun and they are weird and wild, but in just human to human, person to person, it's very humbling and hard to process. So that's just something that I wanted to share for some reason, that it's not like, oh, yes, I have all this magic. It's like, we all do. We all do. But uh, actually seeing evidence of it over and over and over again, um, shocking to my brain. So where was I? Orbs in the sky, miracles in Mexico, miracles in Machu Picchu, healings. There's something I wanted to share. I'm going to exhale because it went a little all over the place. Yeah, there's more to come. There's more to come about different synchronicities, people I've met, calls that I've had, things that I've seen that don't make a whole lot of sense. So stay tuned. If it's your jam, cool. But we're talking about embrace your weirdness. So that's what we're going to do. If you guys have any kind of closing questions about energies for this year, what you're going through personally, seriously, use the space. It's a co-creation. I'm feeling and reading into your energy. That is one of the things that I've learned to do. As a collective, it's a little more intense, but you'd actually be surprised at the patterns of the groups that come together very purposefully for a reason, holding questions in their mind, even if they're not willing to write them publicly, which I would love for you to do. Came for the title and stayed for the orb talk. I love it. Oh, the Machu Picchu thing of Light's Landing. Am I going to share that one? Here's what I can share. My work in Machu Picchu had many, many layers. One was to hold the authenticity of my children and help them connect to nature because the world is so loud telling kids who they should be, telling all of us who we should be, and giving children a space to exist as they are naturally and see what unfolds. I just learned so much from my children to just see them come alive and come into their own. Each one's so different. One interested in plants, the other one who can talk to animals. They all see so much, so much. Remembering past lives, channeling things, telling me crazy stories, having memories of dreams I've had, layer after layer of things I could share about their abilities and things and reasons why I felt like being in the jungle was important. Because I think that when we have a natural environment without the pressures of society, a lot more can unfold and kind of stick in terms of our authenticity and purpose. And why so many people go to the mountain, holy ones. So that was one level. Another was finding a home, finding land. Um, but another was a deep call for energetic work there. So I do a lot of work with the actual land. Um, my belief is that we are one with this mother that creates and gives life to all of us, soil, water, air. It becomes us. And that there's just a much deeper connection than most people realize. So part of the work was to go to Machu Picchu to plant light, plant love, work with the mountains, work with the ruins, learn from the plants and the animals and the guardians there. One of the wild things I saw in the sky was that there were 4 points of light that landed right around Machu Picchu. And they continually got closer and closer and closer to Earth. And they continually got brighter and brighter and brighter. And again, I would have conversations with those lights, and my kids were having conversations with those lights. And as we would talk about these things that we were seeing that were really quite astounding, more stories came together. Like I said, I don't, human Megan doesn't know what she's doing. I'm just like, you want me to go where, God? Okay, I'll try. Show me how. And then like stuff opens up. So I don't always know the layers consciously. Um, but that was part of the work. So I do think there's a few people here who are aware of different earth works. Some people will think it's just batshit, and that's fine. But there are some people here that work with different lights that they see, and they've questioned it, and other people don't see them. And they just needed this confirmation. So for whoever that is, and I'm seeing a couple names, but I'm not going to call it out. Um, just know that there's some validation there that you're also seeing and working with energies to help with people coming back to love and wholeness here on earth. So, yeah, that's something that I wanted to share. But there was some very interesting light and energy, very literally, that showed up, and they had these wild blue rays, and they would shimmer ways managed to. Because most of you guys don't look out in the sky, but I really encourage you to and start to see the difference of what a sky looks like during different parts of the year, different parts of the night, different seasons with different moons, and just notice what's up there because it's astounding and it's teaching us and it's connected to us in ways that are revealing themselves. That was an interesting thought. You're not for everyone. Not everybody's going to get it. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, light body crystal grid transmission activation. So for people who are here, getting under the sky, noticing the shadows that change during the day, seeing the rainbow reflection through the prism of rain, um, it's meaningful. And of course, like we all stop in awe when we really look and we really see it inspires something. It's a spark of something. So I do really encourage you guys who are here to do that and to breathe in the cosmos, to know like we are all stardust. Oh gosh, the cliches that we are made of the same matter, and it just cycles and recycles through eons because we're all literally interconnected. And, a lot of spiritual people are like, oh, we're oneness. We're all like literally, quite literally, physical matter. Same, same. So, yeah, for everybody who's had a very intense 2025, I'm just going to say a little blessing that came out of nowhere. So let me just tune into this for a minute. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for getting up again. Thank you for going through the depths. Thank you for shedding your skin. Thank you for being humbled by this year, realizing what wasn't for you, what wasn't true, as those illusions start to break apart, as those things that didn't work start to become evident, as those old patterns, people, relationship histories, addictions start to surface to be seen from the deep subconscious. There is a reason that people go into the cave of the unknown. There's a reason that people go into the depths of themselves to discover the treasures. Those treasures, some people in different cultures and mythology call it the elixir of life, or the gem, or the light and the darkness. These are all the same metaphor of being willing to go into looking at things that are hard, that don't want to be seen, that are uncomfortable. And for those of you willing to have gone through it and still shown up the best you could, thank you. Honor yourself, forgive yourself, realize how brave that work was and is. The caterpillar has to liquefy before the butterfly. The phoenix has to burn before it rises. 2025 and the years building up to that year were a breakdown. Not easy work for the collective, not easy work for the individual. But thank you for showing up for it. Do not rush this new beginning. Do not expect yourself to get up running. Expect the shift, expect the rebirth, expect the light, but give yourself time. Take your time to evolve, to become, to let go, and to forgive, because that is the work in between. That is the work to transform. That is the work to come back alive. There is so much hope for this new year. There is so much unfolding and so much unexpected that we are so excited for you to all see it. So let that seed and that spark build up so that you have the strength to break through from that chrysalis. May you be blessed, and may you come back to harmony, to wholeness, to goodness, to love. And so it is. Okay, so that was an unexpected little blessing that came through. And to that, I say good evening. Thank you. And yeah, reach out and send a direct message and say hi. I'll be reading your stuff and come by to check out the random things that pop into my head to share here on Substack. I love you guys so much. Feel free to come back and rewatch this. There will be different layers that are revealed to you as you do. And sit and hear funny stories with me. I'll try to do lives more if it's something that you guys are interested in. So feel free to do some feedback on that one. Late nights is usually the time I have with my practical life schedule and doing stuff. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I love you. Love from Peru. Ciao, ciao.